Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of Deal or No Deal on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm Jacob, and of course this is Matthew, and pretty familiar faces on the YouTube channel. How you doing, Matthew?
Doing good. It's always fun to do these types of episodes when we're getting up to the trade deadline, seeing what could happen. And some of these may happen. Who knows?
For sure. So we're just gonna get right into it. We have a bunch of mock trades submitted by people all over social media, so we'll jump right into them. So first up, from Sens Army on Twitter to Ottawa, Ryan Donato and Connor Murphy in exchange for a 2025 or 2026 first round pick, a third round pick, Michael Amadio, Jacob Bernard-Docker, and Oscar Pedersen. What do you think of that deal?
I mean, Donato and Murphy, I mean, those two guys are, I mean, Donato's definitely going to be probably traded for Chicago. I mean, Connor Murphy's the name that's actually in there. I mean, I guess he's been in the rumors, not as much. But I mean, that's a deal that I could see happening. I mean, Donato's probably a team's going to overpay to get him because of what he's doing this season. I mean, he's got career highs across the board. 19 goals, I believe he has right now. And I think adding in Connor Murphy in there kind of balances the deal. So I could see that as potential deal happening. And of course, the Senators being in there, I think they're probably going to be buying. So they're so close to a playoff spot for the first time in a while. I think it would be a disservice to the fans to not give them some upgrades. And those two guys, I mean, Connor Murphy would really upgrade the defense for the Senators. And of course, Donato's a great depth guy. I mean, what he's scoring right now, he could actually be in a top six role. So I actually like that deal for both sides. The Senators aren't giving up a ton. So I mean, for me, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, so if we look at the trade, it's a first round pick to Chicago. Obviously, the big factor in that is that Ottawa is having to forfeit one of those draft picks. So it's kind of like losing both, or the Chicago Blackhawks deciding in this case which pick the Senators are going to forfeit. So that would be 2 first round picks the Senators are without. The third round pick, whatever. Michael Amadio, good veteran piece. I don't know how interested Chicago is. Jacob Bernard-Docker, I could see them liking, and Oscar Pedersen, he's a prospect. I don't know if he's going to amount to much, but obviously the first round pick there is the centerpiece. Michael Amadio, mostly there for salary, but could still be a good piece, and Chicago could flip him. So do you think that this is a fair deal, or do you think one of these teams say no?
I actually think it's, like I said, I think it's a pretty fair deal. When you're looking at, I think the biggest with Connor Murphy is worth the first round pick. I mean, he's still relatively young. He's not an older guy, and he's also a veteran. I mean, with going on a better team, that he's not going to have to be the centerpiece defenseman, which he is in Chicago. I mean, Seth Jones obviously is the big money guy there. But Murphy, I think, has just been a really very underrated defenseman and very good two-way defenseman. I think he's worth a first rounder, in my opinion, alone. When you're looking at Donato, I think I don't know. I think a team may give up a second rounder. I don't think a first is going for him. But, the way he's been producing, I think that's a pretty good balanced deal. Like you said, with Amadio, he's a veteran guy, and the Blackhawks have been okay with bringing in guys like that. And Jacob Bernard-Docker will really kind of, I guess, replace the defense. He's not old either. I mean, he would fit into that rebuild, mode of what the Blackhawks are doing too. So I think both sides would be interested in the pieces here. So I think it's a pretty balanced trade. I don't think anyone is really losing or winning this trade.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is a deal as well. Obviously, Ryan Donato is going to add some depth to the Senators' forward group, which has struggled to score at times. Connor Murphy is going to help bolster that defense group. They already have Zub and Nick Jensen, and Nicholas Matenpalos honestly look fantastic, but certainly would like to upgrade that by bringing Connor Murphy in. And Murphy is signed next year too at under $5 million, so I think it's 4.4. So yeah, I think that's a great deal, and I think both sides would say yes to that. Next up, this one's from Lord Venom on YouTube. Mitch Marner to the Detroit Red Wings for Nate Danielson, I'm guessing that's Michael Rasmussen,
Yeah.
Vladimir Tarasenko, and a first-round pick. And this is with the contingency that there is an extension. So this is a big one. Mitch Marner, obviously no contract headed into this year. The Toronto Maple Leafs are kind of like, they're obviously dominant, and Mitch Marner could be in contention for the Hart Trophy this season. He's been that good. So is this the kind of package that could land you Mitch Marner with an extension?
That's a big thing in there, is the extension in place, because it could potentially be a rental if you don't get that involved. And that's a big package going back to Toronto. Nate Danielson, top prospect, one of it may be the top prospect on the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, you're looking at Axel Sandin-Pellikka as being a pretty big prospect there too. But I mean, Nate Danielson's a big piece there. Michael Rasmussen's, he's, I think, topped out as a middle six guy now. I mean, he's still relatively young. He's not really young, but he's more in that mid range. And Tarasenko's a veteran. He looks like he's going to be on the move. I don't know if he's the biggest. I think maybe a bit of a throw in there. He's not going to be long term in Toronto. I think he just signed a 1-year deal.
Tarasenko's on. He has one more year left after.
So he signed a 2-year.
1.75.
Yeah, so I mean, he'd be there in Toronto next year too, so he wouldn't be a rental. First round pick in there. That's a pretty big package, and I think that's what's going to take to land Mitch Marner. I don't know if the trade's going to happen though, because when you're looking at the Maple Leafs, they're in a contender spot. They're one of the top teams in the league again. Would they trade Mitch Marner now for guys that may or may not help you right now? I mean, Nate Danielson is still AHL player. Rasmussen obviously in the NHL, but I don't know. I think this is more of a deal that happens in the offseason, not now.
Yeah, I think these are all assets that the Maple Leafs would love to have. I think Danielson, obviously, he would be without a doubt their top prospect. Michael Rasmussen, like they would love to add the depth that he brings. Tarasenko, why not give him a shot if it makes sense? And the first round pick, of course, every team wants. So these are all good assets that the Red Wings, or that the Maple Leafs would want from the Red Wings. I just don't think it's enough together to make sense for the Maple Leafs to do. Obviously, like I said, Marner's on pace to have a legitimate shot at the Hart Trophy this year, which is impressive to do with Austin Matthews on your team. So, I'm going to say that the Maple Leafs say no to this, and I don't know what the Red Wings could do unless it's including. I don't think there's a way for the Red Wings to get Mitch Marner this year unless it includes like Lucas Raymond or Dylan Larkin or something. Like, it's just not going to happen unless Toronto is really like, this makes way too much sense for us.
And I'll correct myself. They couldn't do this in the offseason because Marner's a free agent. But I mean, I think that's a deal that happens like last offseason, I would say, if they were, because they were talking about trading Mitch Marner in the offseason. But I think it just doesn't happen right now. I would say it's a no on the Maple Leaf side, but I'd see this as the type of a package that would potentially get him.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you said, it just doesn't make sense right now to deal him. All right, next up from Twitter or X, Nixon out to Carolina, Mitch Marner, and to Toronto, Mikko Rantanen. So this is a really fun one. Obviously, since arriving in Carolina, Mikko Rantanen has not played up to par. He's played really good. He just hasn't had the point totals. He's taken some unnecessary penalties, and obviously he's gotten sick. He blocked a shot and got injured, and this is all in 6 games. So things aren't going as well as hoped, but Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner are both unrestricted free agents this offseason. And I want to preface it by saying I think that Mikko Rantanen is the much better player overall. Not much better, but better. Mitch Marner's obviously having the better season, especially since Rantanen came to Carolina. So what do you think of this? This is a really interesting deal.
This is like, Shea Weber, a PK Subban type thing. 1-for-1, 2 stars, moving teams. I mean, those two were under term contracts at the time, but these are basically rentals, I guess, for both guys. I mean, I would say this would be very unprecedented when you're looking at, big deal Rantanen going, and then he'd be flipped again before the deadline. But I guess it looks like it doesn't fit and they're not going to sign him. Maybe go for a guy that may potentially be able to sign. And Rantanen, of course, the Maple Leafs are, I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting trade when you're looking at it. Of course, Toronto would love to have a guy like Mikko Rantanen next to Austin Matthews. Obviously, we all know how Rantanen plays next to stars. Like, he's played with Nathan McKinnon his whole career. And he's, playing with Matthews potentially would be a really good duo too. I like this trade. It'd be really fun to see, especially because Rantanen's already been traded.
This is almost the level of AD for Jokic. Or Doncic, sorry, not Jokic. Almost to that level. Not quite, but like that would be right there. Except for the fact that they're both UFAs this year. I don't know if you're much of a basketball fan or anything, but that was a trade that shocked the world. And you don't have to be a basketball fan to know that. But this would be almost on par with that, except for the fact that they're both UFAs. If I had to, I think Toronto says no to this immediately. Obviously, Rantanen would be a perfect fit in Toronto. I just don't think he would be as good as Mitch Marner has been this season. So it's hard when you're talking about somebody who, again, is in contention for the Hart Trophy.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Marner's been on fire. I mean, he's really making a case to make a lot of money in the offseason if he does hit free agency. And yeah, he's been pretty much Toronto's best player. When you're looking at Matthews being out for so long with injuries, in and out of the lineup, and Marner's really, I mean, he's not scoring as much, but he's sure got a lot of assists and helping out. So yeah, you're trading a potential Hart Trophy winner. I don't think that happens.
Well, he's fourth in the league in points and is regularly a Selke nominee. So, yeah. Or candidate, maybe not a nominee, but yeah. All right, moving on. Oliver Thompson on X to Vancouver, Ryan O'Reilly, and to Nashville, Atu Ratu, and a second-round pick. What do you think about this? You're the Vancouver guy. You got the jerseys behind you.
I love this trade. I really do. I mean, Atu Ratu's been pretty good in the AHL. He's obviously still a prospect. And the second-round pick added. Ryan O'Reilly would really. I mean, the Canucks are looking for a second-line center right now. Of course, trading JT Miller. Everyone knows this. Even if you're just a casual hockey fan, I'm sure you've heard. JT Miller traded to the Rangers, and now the Canucks have Philip Hedl and Elias Pettersson as their top two centers. And Ryan O'Reilly would really fill out basically like an Elias Lindholm type deal where you're bringing in a really good – I mean, he's obviously a top 6 guy in Nashville, but he would be the same type of player, really good face-up guy, great two-way player, veteran. He would really be a great fit in Vancouver. I really like this trade from the Canucks side. I don't know about Nashville doing it, but I really like it from the Canucks. I think that's something that, I mean, Ratu's still a legitimate top prospect. I obviously traded in the Bo Horvat trade. As the main piece in there, and the second round pick added would sweeten the deal. I like it. I think the Canucks would say yes. I'm not sure about the Predators though.
Yeah, I think the Predators say no. I don't think they're ready to start blowing things up, and this kind of deal screams I'm ready to blow things up. Obviously, Ratu and a second round pick are great assets. Nashville already has 3 first round picks this year, so there would be there's a lot of good things about this deal. But Ryan O'Reilly is their guy. He doesn't wear the C, but he might as well. And they said openly that they're not looking to trade him. And even though he doesn't have a no-move clause or no trade clause, they're treating him as if he does. So Ryan O'Reilly has to agree to this deal as well.
Yeah.
So I'm personally going to say that Nashville says no.
That's my thing too. I mean, I say the Canucks say yes, but I mean, both sides obviously have to agree to the deal. And of course, this is a player the Canucks would be targeting, that type of guy when they're looking for the second line centers. But if they would propose this to Nashville, I think they'd say no at this point, because I don't think they're blowing up the team, and O'Reilly's a big part of it. Like, there's the thing about it saying that he doesn't have a no trade clause, but they're treating it like he does. So he would have to be okay with it too.
For sure. All right, moving on. This one is from Pondering Pyramids on YouTube. Flyers get Dylan Cozens from Buffalo for Scott Lawton, Bobby Brink, and Colorado's first round pick and a second round pick. So that's a really big package going to the Buffalo Sabres. Do you think that this is the kind of deal Buffalo wants to do? Do you think that this is a yes or a no for each team? What are your thoughts?
I say the Flyers. Sabres, this is a really loaded trade. I don't think Cozens is worth this much. I'd say this is a really big win for the Sabres if they're able to do this. I say the Flyers say no. Cozens, he's a good player, but really he has not proven himself to be he is a 30-goal scorer one time, 30-goal scorer, but he hasn't eclipsed 70 points in his career, I don't think, yet. And you're throwing in a first-round pick and a second. Scott Lawton, he's not the same player he was, probably for a few seasons now. Bobby Brink's still a really legitimate prospect. I guess he's not a prospect anymore either, but a really good young player. And you're getting all that for Cozens. That's a big win for Buffalo and a really big loss for the Flyers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that this deal could make sense if you take out the first round pick. Like if you do Lawton, Brink in a second, I think that's a much closer deal. It's hard to do. It's hard to find the right value when you're in a position like Buffalo is, because they need help now, but also should they be getting help now, or should they be looking towards the future yet again?
Yeah, that's a big question, right? And we were just on Ice Time. If check out that episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But we were just talking about the Sabres and why stuff's not working out and all that stuff. And this move would be another one where you're looking at, are they kind of going that rebuild mode? Because Lawton isn't, like I say, isn't a caliber of Cozens. And you're kind of going rebuild, I guess, with this deal. And I don't know. The Sabres are an interesting team of what they're going to be doing next. And I don't know. It seems like Cozens is going to be on the move. I don't know what they're going to be getting for him. But it's just going to be interesting to see what the Sabres do with deals like this before the trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a no from both of us on Philadelphia's part. Just to put that out there clearly. Yeah. All right, next up. This one is from Facebook. Eric Finnegan. Now that we have Noah Dobson in the trade rumors, Dylan Cozens for Noah Dobson. This is a really interesting one, I think. Obviously, it's a huge one-for-one deal, like we already saw with Rantanen and Marner. Not to the same extent, but it's pretty close to that. What do you think?
Noah Dobson, the thing is about him, he's going to be an RFA, and he's going to command quite a bit of money. And I think that's why the rumors are there, because the Islanders may not be able to pay him. And, you're really, for the Islanders' part, you're trading a guy like Dobson and getting a centerman in return. Now your top defenseman is Alexander Romanov. I don't know. Is that downgrading your team now? And on forward, do they really need Cozens? As I think trading Dobson, you should get a defenseman in return. Although there has been the rumors about Dobson being in an Elias Pettersson trade, too, which would be again a forward in return. They do need help up front when you're looking at, especially with their aging forwards. They've got a lot of guys that are 30 or and above. Talking about they're trading guys like Brock Nelson and guys like that. Maybe getting Cozens in again, a younger guy, would help. Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal. It's an interesting one, like you said. I don't know what side I would say the Sabres say yes on this, but I'm not sure this is a guy that maybe shooting a bit higher, even though Elias Pettersson isn't doing very well this season. I think trading a guy like Dobson for a guy like that more than Cozens.
I find it so hard to gauge whether or not Noah Dobson is a good defenseman or not. Like,
Yeah.
I think that he is not one of the best, like not top 8, but in that like 9 to 15 range. I would throw him in there. But then like you hear New York Islanders fans or you see them on X and they're like, "Oh, this guy sucks." Like just wave him and all that. Like I don't know. It's so confusing. I think that he is phenomenal, and usually it's the guys that are guys or girls that are watching their favorite team hyping up their player. But it seems like
Yeah.
every Islanders fan is very frustrated with Dobson every single night. So I don't know what it is. I would more than happily take Dobson on any team that I would cheer for. My biggest concern is how much Buffalo already pays their defensemen. So obviously,
Yeah.
Rasmus Dahlin makes $11 million. Owen Power makes 8.4, I believe. Matthias Samuelsson makes over 4. Bowen Byram, I mean, he's an RFA this season, but he makes almost 4. Connor Clifton makes 3.5. Yoki Haru, he's a UFA this year, but he makes over 3. Like that's a lot of money on your defense, especially for a defense that's not that good as a group. Obviously, Dahlin is great. Power's up and coming. Samuelson's a good shutdown. But, like, as a group, they're just not a good defense group. So adding Dobson certainly makes it better. But that's another, like, almost $10 million you're going to have to throw at that defense group. So I'm going to say no deal for both teams. I don't think either team would do this deal.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if it really fits either. I mean, you're looking at, I didn't even touch on Buffalo being, I mean, do they really need defense? Just like, they keep adding, like Bowen Byram was their big ad last season, right? And he's fit in pretty well, but now there's talk that he may be traded.
But at the same time, the Sabres would be much better this year with Middlestat instead of Byram.
True. Yeah, I mean, that is very true. I mean, and Cozens, you trade him for another defenseman, that's not really helping what their problem is, I think. I mean, Dobson's really good offensively. I think they need better overall team defense, and that doesn't help getting Dobson and trading away Cozens, who's actually pretty good in that department defensively, right? So, yeah, I say it's a no for both sides as well.
All right. This one is from Anti. That's a football league, I think. Buffalo receives Trent Frederick with an extension, and Boston receives Noah Ostlund. So this is an interesting one. Depends on how much you value Trent Frederick. Depends on how much you believe in the very near future of the Buffalo Sabres. I think Boston does this deal personally, without a doubt. The Sabres, if you think that they should be buying, then I think it makes sense. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think where you're looking at Buffalo, this is definitely a buy. I mean, Frederick is, again, with that extension, that's a big part of it. Ostlund is, again, the Sabres have so many prospects. This is something they should probably be doing, but I don't agree with being the buy. They shouldn't be buying right now. I think they should be trying to get, I mean, again, this is where a team that it's very interesting where they're going. Are they going to just keep continuing that loading up prospects, or should they be doing a deal like this right now? Trying to get, yes, they probably won't make the playoffs this season, but should they be building to try to make that team for next season now, instead of selling off and getting just more prospects and more picks, which they have plenty of already? This is probably a deal they should be doing. And the Bruins, this is kind of a sell for them. Because Ostlund is not an NHL player. He's still a prospect. And this is something I think the Bruins should be doing too, because their prospect pool is horrible. They don't have very good guys, and they need some up-and-coming centermen, and Ostlund's definitely that. So there's benefits for both sides, but like you said, what is the decision on both teams of what their direction is at this point of the season?
Yeah, I think I'm going to say no on Buffalo, just because I don't think they should do this deal. Like, I think the value is fine. I think this is a really good trade, outside of the fact that Buffalo shouldn't be doing this trade.
The way they are right now, I don't think. But in my opinion, like I said, I think Sabres should do this trade because I think they should be preparing for next season into trying to be a playoff team. And this definitely helps that because with the extension, Frederic would be part of that team next season. And he's a guy that maybe adds a bit to what they need because they do need a bit more bite in their game. And Frederic definitely has shown that in the NHL. So I would say this is something the Sabres should be doing. So I'm going to say this is a deal for the Sabres side.
Okay. Next up, we got two more. There's three in this one, so we'll just run through these ones really quick. David, this was on Substack. So David says, Brandon Tanev for Ryan Lindgren. What do you think about that?
I think the Rangers, Lindgren, I think, is gone. I think this is the guy that will be traded. And Brandon Tanev would really add to that bottom six, which really hasn't been very good for the Rangers. I mean, there's a lot of guys that haven't been good on the Rangers, but Tanev would add a lot of playoff type depth to the Rangers, even if they may not even make the playoffs. But I like the trade. I don't know if it really adds a lot to, again, Lindgren, I think, he just signed a 1-year extension, so he's going to be a free agent again. So I don't know if it really helps the Kraken too much.
Yeah, unless they think they can lock up Lindgren, which I don't even think they would have that much interest in. I agree. I don't think they would really go after. I don't think they would really go after a guy like Lindgren. Casey Middlestad for Mika Zibanejad. Immediately no, because the salary cap would not allow that. The Colorado Avalanche do not have that much space. But what about the value-wise? So let's ignore the cap space just for this one. What do you think about this deal?
I think for value, I think Zibanejad, the way he's been playing this season, he's not that high value. But if, the Colorado Avalanche are getting the Zibanejad from the last few seasons, it's definitely what they need. Legitimate second-line center, potentially top-line center. Of course, in Colorado, he wouldn't be because Nathan McKinnon's that all day. But they've been looking for that. Middlestad has been good at times. He's not been great. And he looked like he was going to be that answer as a second-line guy. But Zibanejad would definitely be that going to the Avalanche. But like you said, that probably won't happen because they'd have to do a lot of maneuvering for the salary cap for that to work. But value-wise, I think it does because of Middlestad's age. I think for the Rangers, you're getting younger, and that's what they need. They've got a lot of older guys. I think Middlestad fits that, moving towards a younger side.
Yeah, I think on paper it makes sense for kind of both teams. Again, it just can't happen. And last one for this one, Trevor Zegras for Zach Jones. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, again, with the Ducks, I think Zegras is the one guy that they may be trading from that quote-unquote core. I don't know what their actual core is, but I think Zegras is maybe part of that. Zach Jones, again, would be another – it's kind of a move, two young guys between two teams. And, of course, Zach Jones is a defenseman, right? Just want to double-check. Yeah. Okay. Zach Jones would be – adding to that defense core that they really been doing a lot of trades with, trying to get it better. I'm not sure the direction of the Ducks especially with their defense, because they're bringing in these veteran guys. They got Jacob Trouba now. They got, they did some free agent moves that really were interesting last offseason. I don't know, again, the direction of the Ducks. And Zegras may be moved, and again, moving to the Rangers, he, again, getting younger for the Rangers. And I think Jones would maybe be one of the guys that they trade for that. I'm not sure about that deal, actually. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. One, I think the value was not close. I think that Trevor Zegras has a lot more value, but even still, you look at like you mentioned, Jacob Trouba. They have Radko Gudas and Brian Dumoulin as the veterans there. But then they have Jackson Lacombe, Drew Hellison, Pavel Minchikov, Olin Zellweger, and then even like sent down in the AHL, like Tristan Leno and Stian Solberg. Like, they do not need young defensemen. They have more than enough. So, yeah. I mean, Zach Jones is 24, I think, 24 or 25. And he's a good offensive guy. They don't need any more of that, especially trading Zegras for one.
No, they're loaded on defense. They don't for like you said, you mentioned so many guys that are going to be there. You're just really loading up that logjam even more by trading Zegras for a defenseman. I think if they do trade Zegras, it's for a more established forward that's in that maybe a little older than him. But I do see Zegras getting traded. It's just not going to be for Jones or for a defenseman.
I agree. All right, last one of the video. Ice Fishing, Michigan. That was hard to say. The Detroit Red Wings get Dylan Cozens and Bowen Byram, two people we've already talked about. And Buffalo gets JT Compher, Eric Gustafson, Valinder, Nate Danielson, and a second-round pick. This is a huge package.
Yeah.
Some of it maybe not as valuable, like Eric Gustafson in there. But what do you think? I personally think that this makes a bit of sense for both teams, and the value's kind of there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, the big part of this one is Nate Danielson, the top prospect in this deal. And Dylan Cozens would add to of course, the Red Wings. They don't have that established second line center right now. JT Compher's been kind of filling in there since he signed as a free agent. You're looking at Marco Kasper, could potentially be that in the future. Nate Danielson in this deal is kind of tabbed to be potentially in there too. Cozens would take over that right away. I think he is already a legitimate top 6 guy. Bowen Byram, again, they'd have to sign him. He's going to be is he RFA pretty soon?
RFA, yeah.
So, I mean, they'd have to sign him. And again, the Red Wings need defense. They do have some guys coming up, like I mentioned, Axel Sandin-Pellikka already. Simon Edvinson's already an established guy. Moritz Seider, we know is there. I think Byram would really round out that. You're looking at Gustafson, like I said, it's an add-on. Compher going to Buffalo. I actually like that. Again, going in, he would fill basically the same role that Cozens is already there. Second round pick. Yeah, the value is there for both. I think, you're looking at Cozens and Byram, they're both really young guys still, but they're both established NHL players. And I think Byram's the biggest piece going to the Red Wings because I really like him, would round out that defense with Sandin-Pellikka coming late, not very, probably the next few seasons. They'd have a really good young defense core with him there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you and say deal on this. I think both teams get what they need.
Yep.
So that'll wrap things up for the first episode of Deal or No Deal on the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for coming to watch. And make sure you leave a comment, and we'll include any comments, or depending on how many we get, some in the next episode of this. Hopefully we can get another one done before the trade deadline, and we'll definitely look forward to seeing your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack as well. We're going to post on there, and make sure to check out all the content from the Hockey Writers leading up to the trade deadline. Have a great night.